Patrick and Rowland, thank you once again for your time. And I love seeing this. We just showed a really cool clip of what happens when the light goes behind this, what it looks like. But this is the drill core from the Great Atlantic. Can you explain a little bit, what are we seeing right now?
Well, that's a box of core from hole CC5 that we drilled a few years ago, and as part of our 43-101 resource calculation. And what you're seeing here is simply the massive salt that we found near the base of this hole. It's a typical gray color. We have a variety of colors. We have white salt, gray salt, champagne colored salt. We also have a red variety and black. Now they are exceptional. The vast bulk of the deposit is a gray and white salt.
Now, I wanted to ask as well, because just like you said, there are different colors here. You see much more whiter in the inside of the core. You see some black elements. Does that have anything to do with purity of this salt, different types of salt, or is it simply just a different color?
Well, this salt here is averaging between 95 and 98% sodium chloride. So color doesn't necessarily determine purity. Color, these types of salts, the grays and the whites and the champagne, is really an optical phenomena. It's dictated by how light transmits through the crystalline structure. So if you take the salt, for example, and you cut it and you break it open, you can see how nice and white the salt is on the inside. And guess what? Wow, it's fantastic. It's really salty and it's got a flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously safe to eat as well. And then obviously you're doing these drill holes because you want to see what this deposit looks like. We have a feasibility study that's ongoing right now for investors that need a little bit more understanding of what is going on with that feasibility and why you do it. Rowland, can you speak about that a little bit?
Well, the feasibility study really is, we've been looking at this for a lot of years, and feasibility study is going to bring a third party to bear, engineering companies doing the work for us, and they're going to look at the whole, how you design the mine, and basically price it up. And at the end of the day, they're going to say, this works, it's feasible as a market, we can mine this economically, and this is what it costs to set up. So you'll end up with a feasibility study it's a bankable study, and something that certainly can attract a lot of attention.
Yeah, I know with a lot of other mining places as well, you do your feasibility study, but then that might just tell you, hey, this is where you need to start drilling more, and you do tens, hundreds of more holes. Is that the plan with the Great Atlantic deposit?
No, and in fact, you won't field holes.
Okay.
This is such a massive deposit that you don't need to drill to find it. What we're doing is mostly we're drilling to get some geotechnical information about how we would structure the mine, how we design the mine, and design the access to the mine. So, salt is soluble, so you don't want a whole bunch of holes into the deposit because you have to avoid those when you're mining, and that just cuts up your design. So you want to keep it to a minimum, give you enough information about the deposit and the overlying strata that you can make a good design.
Yeah, and it's very important for investors to know, because as exactly what you just said, you're not looking to do tens or hundreds of more of these drill holes. You're looking to try to map everything out. So, eventually this can become a mine. But in order to do that, you need obviously people of Newfoundland and the government on board as well. Patrick, can you speak a little bit about, if everything goes well with this feasibility study, everything shows absolutely this is a mine, let's create a mine, what type of roadblocks may there be, or are there any within Newfoundland?
Well, Newfoundland and Labrador is rated as one of the top jurisdictions in the world by the Fraser Institute. They look at all the mining jurisdictions around the world. So that tells you several things. That evaluation is done on the prospectivity of Newfoundland. From a geological perspective, is very high. That's being demonstrated currently by an unprecedented staking rush in Newfoundland for gold and base metal deposits. As well, the Fraser Institute looks at the regulatory system in the jurisdiction. So Newfoundland and Labrador's regulatory system is seen as being very progressive and encouraging for mining development in the province. There's currently a mine being developed in central Newfoundland right now for gold. There are mines that are being expanded. And we expect this to be the next mine in Newfoundland, a very substantial one. because salt is an industrial mineral, unlike base metals and gold, which usually have a lifespan of 7, 10, 15, 20 years. A salt mine can be in existence for over 50 years. In fact, the 2 salt mines that currently produce in Atlantic Canada, one is in Pugwash, Nova Scotia, the other is in the Magdalen Islands. They've been in production for over 50 years.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And, it's also very important to note as well. I mean, just in our plane here to Deer Lake, we were talking to people who were sitting next to us, and they're Newfoundlanders, and they knew about this deposit. People are talking about it here because in Newfoundland, obviously, you've got, once was fishing, and there's logging, but mining is a massive part of this community. Can you speak to the actual people of Newfoundland? Obviously, the jurisdiction, obviously the government, but the actual people and the jobs is great for them as well.
Yeah, resource development has always been part of our history, right? Newfoundland and Labrador is founded on the fishery. Forestry, we're sitting here now near Brook, major pulp and paper mill. Offshore Newfoundland, we're a major oil and gas producer. We've had a long history of mining in Newfoundland. It dates back to the 1700s. Major mines in western Labrador for iron ore. Some of the most significant base metal mines in the world were in Newfoundland, such as the Buckens mine. So we've got a long history of appreciating the benefits from mining, both to the community, to the individual, and to the provincial economy. So we feel pretty good that we're in one of the best jurisdictions in the world to appreciate what we're doing.
And speaking about one of the best jurisdictions, obviously yourself, Rowland, working at Goderich for 16 years. I know we spoke about this in the past in terms of the DNA of what you're seeing, is how you put it. The more and more you're seeing from the Great Atlantic deposit, how are you seeing the comparisons to Goderich? Is it the same? Or are you seeing even better things? Can you go a little bit more into that again for an investor to be curious?
I mean, Goderich is like the gold standard. It's the biggest in the world, and it has a lot of advantages, and it makes it the best. But this one, Great Atlantic, the deposit is close to water, which gives you the opportunity to actually ship to the markets that need the salt for winter. The deposit is a massive homogeneous deposit that allows you to plan your mine and mine accordingly. So it's just all the pieces are there that make this equally advantaged. Mm-hmm. And certainly, when Patrick brought it to my attention, I just saw basically a new Goderich. We could build a new Goderich here on the East Coast.
Yeah. I love every time we talk about it too, how easy it sounds. At times I might be saying that ignorantly, but truly how you can go in, you can dig it right from there, put it on a conveyor belt and go straight to Turf Point, which is a massive port. And you can take that anywhere. Does that also, if you're a major, if you're anybody looking to get involved more in this project, is that something that just sets off light bulbs like, oh my goodness, this makes a lot of sense for me?
So let's not call it easy. It's mining still,
yeah.
But it's simple. It's very simple. This is the rock, obviously in situ, but you mine it, you crush it, you screen it, because size is important to the market, and you ship it. There's no, expensive chemical processing. There's no expensive processing plant. It's just crushing and screening, and just absolutely keep stuff simple. And that's the way we'll design it, and that's the way we'll operate it.
Yeah, and another element as well, I'm not sure we've ever talked about, is in Newfoundland itself, and just in the world, everyone's looking for self-sustainability right now. Our supply chains are getting so difficult. We're seeing it all around the world. In terms of Newfoundland, there's a lot of salt used here for road de-icing. And the fact that this province can now have potentially the opportunity to have its own mine, its own source, is that something that both the people of Newfoundland, but also the government as well, is very excited about? They don't have to keep importing that from across the pond.
I mean, salt's a tender process generally to buy it, so they'll probably keep still tendering it. It's a public purse, but we're here.
Yeah,
we've got the logistical advantage, and surely we'll be able to supply Newfoundland with all its highway maintenance needs in winter. I think the other point to make that really is attractive about this is the nature of being able to de-risk it. Just everything you look at, you've got an answer for it. So that's going to become very attractive as we work through this to the end of the feasibility study.
And Patrick.
Yeah, the Newfoundland economy consumes about 300,000 tons per year. Our initial mine design is going to look at a 2 million to 4 million ton per range per year. We feel that we can comfortably enter the market in Eastern North America because currently we're importing anywhere from 7 to 10 million tons per year, depending on the severity of the winter. And what's happening in the international market, I guess, is no mystery to anybody. Supply chain security is having an effect on shipping rates. Environmental standards, new emission standards are having effects on shipping rates. In 2020, the international shipping industry went to a much higher emission standard, which means that ships have to burn more costly fuel. Those costs are passed on to the end consumer. So for us, because of our location being in the center of the salt market, it provides us with a competitive advantage, which will never go away. Our location is key. So we feel pretty strongly that the market is there for us to enter into. And as well, because the local market is or will be buying locally, it means that we are displacing those deep sea, long distance shipping emissions. So we're actually saving the planet a substantial amount of CO2 emissions by displacing that shipping.
Yeah. And what I like about this whole vision is, there's a big market there, and we'll start 2-4 million, but the design that we're contemplating is being able to, we'll have something that's scalable. We'll be able to speed it up. We'll be able to put more power in, put more machines in. Why stop at 4, maybe 6? Mm-hmm. And as we test the market, as the market develops, who knows?
Mm-hmm. We've talked about this in the past as well, how there hasn't been a new mine in North America in 20, 25 years. So if and when this gets put into production, you can only imagine the technological advantage that you would have where everything is top of the line, state-of-the-art machinery. What type of advantage may that give the Great Atlantic project as well?
It's a huge advantage to start off in design with the best available technology instead of trying to adapt the design you've already got. So, going in with electrically powered continuous miners, that's the go-to standard these days for the salt industry. It's a smaller mine. These bigger mines, as Patrick said, they last for decades, generations. But mines don't get smaller, they get bigger and bigger, and all that underground infrastructure needs to be supported. It's a legacy cost. I mean, you have to spend that money before you make 1 ton.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a lot more compact design. We're going to be operating from a starting point with continuous mining machines. So we'll look to minimize the cost of operating the mine, basically. Looking for safety, number one, high efficiency, good productivity, all those things. Just we want to make sure that this mine is the low cost mine.
And you said something interesting there. You said how these mines last for years and years, but just like with anything, all good things do come to an end. In terms of the North American market right now, there's some mines within North America that very well may only have 1, 2, 3 more years left of productivity before they get shut down. What do you think that would do in terms of the supply crunch we're already seeing, 7 to 10 million tons a year within North America, but also some of the bigger players are looking around and saying, you know what, some of my mines may be going over the next few years. I really need to get a new one and fast. Does that come into play with all of this?
Potentially. I mean, as we communicate this whole story, it's getting a lot of attention. Others are going to have to make their own decisions about whether this fits with their business plan or not. But certainly, if you have an old, expensive mine, having a new, low-cost mine is going to be certainly attractive to you, I think. Mm-hmm. But again, they got to make their own choices.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate so much for your time going through this. I know that we're going to be going for our boots on the ground visit of the Great Atlantic and for Fischell Brook as well. So looking forward to that as well. But thank you so much for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.